Hello friends, and welcome to this update on this second scene. Now I've done quite a bit of work since last week, which I didn't bother recording because it's pretty much the same as I've been doing in the past, and doesn't really offer anything interesting to see. But let me run through what I've changed. So this is where we left it last week. I created this background, and I did two things differently to previous backgrounds. The floor I coloured on the gradient level, and added a floor gradient to make a slight change in the colour. And I said last week that I'd be updating the other backgrounds with the same gradient, and I've done that this week, that I'll show you in a second. I also added a light at the top. If I turn on the preview mode, you'll see there it lights up the central light, glows a little bit, and adds this gradient around the outside. So if I turn it on and off, you can see that glowing. You can also see the glow, of course, on the green bowl on the centre of the table. So if I go to the previous angle, here you see I've added a gradient where it's darker at the bottom and lighter at the top of the floor there. And also I've added lights on the kitchen lights there. So if I turn on the preview mode for that, you see how they make a difference over there. And I've tried not to make them too bright. And they still may be a little bit bright, but I might adjust them later, that's not a problem. And again, as I go to this view, I've added the gradient on the floor and light in the kitchen area. Now by adding these lights, it has created a few more columns in the X sheet, and I'll chat about that some more tomorrow because I've got a plan to simplify that. Because tomorrow I'll be adding these 5 backgrounds into the actual animation scene for scene number 2. And that's why I've taken so long on the backgrounds, because there's 5 separate angles that I need for the whole scene. And I wanted to make sure I got the backgrounds finished before I started adding them to the scene and before I started drawing the characters. But also by drawing the 5 backgrounds together, back to back, I've learnt so much about drawing the backgrounds and using the tools and which ones were best for which circumstance. And I've been surprised how many columns I've actually used to create a background. So that's changed the way I look at the background and how I'm going to use them in the main animation. But as I said, that's something I'll go over tomorrow. But also this week, I've actually changed the second scene. And that's partially down to the consideration of how I'm going to use the background in that scene. Because there's so many columns, and as you can see here on the lights, there's a few keyframes that's needed to make the lights work. So importing this background is importing quite a lot of columns and information already. And on top of that, I'll be adding the characters, their animations, using the plastic tool mesh to add some animations. I'll be keying the camera to zoom in and out, and possibly adding some more effects. So that's quite a lot of information in one scene. And in the past, OpenToonz has sometimes struggled with a lot of information, and I've lost some data, I've had to reset up scenes, and I don't want to have to reset up such a long scene. So I've taken a look back at the scenes I've created and split them up further. So I did have 4 scenes originally that I'd created. I'd got the outside, I'd got the conference room, I've then got the TV scene where Morbo and Linda are talking, then back to the conference room to finish setting up the story, ready for the main adventure. So I've got 4 scenes, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and after watching the animatic and reading through the script and thinking about where the camera changes are going to be, I split up the second scene into 3 smaller scenes, which I've called 2A, 2B and 2C. And the same for the TV scene, I've also split that up into 3 smaller scenes. And if I'd done this sooner, I wouldn't have needed quite so many backgrounds to get started on scene 2A. But that's lesson learned. The smaller scenes will be easier to manage. And although I've split scene 2 and scene 3 up into 3 scenes each, when I actually start working on them, I might realise I needed even smaller scenes. We'll see how that goes. So for now, I've left scene 4 as it is, I've not broken that down. I figured I'd learned from animating scenes 2 and 3, and then after that, I'd be able to break down scene 4 into more manageable, sensible chunks. So to do that, I'd already split the audio into 4 pieces. So I loaded up scene 2 audio, and broke that down into 3 separate audio files and saved them out, in the same way as I showed a few weeks ago when I split the original audio into 4 pieces. And again for scene 3, I listened to that and split that into 3 pieces at the appropriate time. So now I've got 3 separate audio files for scenes 2 and 3. And then I went back to the actual scene and I copied it into 3 separate scenes, which I called 2A, 2B and 2C. I deleted the old audio file, copied in the new one, and then deleted all the animatic that wasn't needed for this particular audio file. So that gave me 3 smaller scenes for scene 2, which I called 2A, 2B, 2C, and 3 smaller scenes for scene 3, which again I called 3A, B and C. And then when I finished that, I updated my render tasks. So if you remember, I've created a set of render tasks so that I could render the whole animation in one go. And I removed scenes 2 and 3 and added scenes 2 ABC and scenes 3 ABC. So the final thing to do was update the edit in my video editor. So I removed the outputs from scenes 2 and 3 and replaced it with the 3 outputs for each of the scenes 2 and 3 that was generated from the OpenToonz tasks. So that means after I render each scene, I can open this project and it'll automatically be inserted in the video output. So that'll make it easier for me to see the progress. And don't forget, I'll share this progress on my Twitter and Facebook pages, so do follow me there. And also feel free to join me on the OpenToonz Discord, where we can chat about this or any other part of OpenToonz animation. So that's it for this update. Tomorrow I'll be adding the 5 backgrounds I've drawn into the 3 new animation scenes, ready to start work on adding the characters. But even with adding the backgrounds, I've changed my mind on how I'll do it to make it more efficient. And I think you'll find that useful to see. So I'll be back tomorrow and I'll show you that. And that's a guarantee.